Let's go Tampa Bay 20, Tennessee Titans 6. Bucks move to 4-5. Titans fall to 3-6. Will Levis, not a great game for the Titans in his third NFL start. And again, the Bucks offense, I know they only ended up scoring 20, but the Bucks offense showing more life over these last couple of weeks than they had, the rest of the season. But they needed, Bucks were on a losing streak, had that heartbreaker last week against the Houston Texans, and needed a bounce back game and got a good one from Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans and company, even though Evans had some weird drops in there as well. He also came back with some of those, superhuman Mike Evans type plays.
Well, they had but there was a sequence, I think, of back-to-back plays or very close to back-to-back where Baker Mayfield had an underthrown deep shot to Mike Evans, like underthrown by a mile. Evans catches it, and then
that was the sequence, yeah.
Right. Baker Mayfield mistake cost them 4 points essentially. If he gets it out earlier, it's a touchdown easily, and then Mike Evans drops a touchdown right after that. Yeah. It's like two separate times you cost yourself 4 points in this drive. Like either one of those plays should be a touchdown. You miss both of them and you end up only getting a field goal. In in a closer game, that would have been a problem. But their defense, handled Will Levis and the Titans offense. So really you just needed like a decent game from Baker Mayfield, not a great one.
Yeah, I mean, so that sequence, I did note it and was like, okay, this comes back to bite because it put them up 7, I think, instead of 10 or 11. And it was like those are back-to-back 4-point plays. But later on, Evans makes up for it, catching the ball and dragging defender into the end zone for a touchdown. Rashad White had a really nice touchdown on a screen pass, 43-yarder to kick off the scoring.
Dude, that
for
play,
the Bucs.
We never asked this to Bobby over breakfast, but I wonder if there's a better feeling as like a play caller than when you, through luck or design, catch the opposition in like the perfect play call. Yeah. Like they dialed up a screen for the exact time that Tennessee was blitzing, and it might not even have been a proper blitz. It might have just been the linebacker like green dogging on the running back, and thinking the running back staying in the block, and then he's like fakes the block and then slips out the screen, and the linebacker is charging up the middle trying to get to the quarterback. Either way, you've dialed up the play that it's going to dump the ball over their pass rush's head and just give him clean real estate to run into. So it was one of those perfect plays where you look at it live and you're like, oh, they're screwed. Like if this ball goes over the pass rush, it's a touchdown immediately. That must feel like the feeling from that as a coach must be amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I've got it. I've nailed it. Like this is the call. This will kill that play.
So from a Titans perspective, I thought the Bucs offense, they left a few points on the table, as we had talked about before. Mm-hmm. But a well-dialed up screen, Mike Evans getting behind the defense, Trey Palmer, some good plays, some bad, whatever. But they had some big plays in there. Bucs offense looking better for the first time, and we're back-to-back games for the first time all season. And then on the other side, Will Levis regressing a little bit after the 4-touchdown opening performance, throwing the ball to defense a little bit more. Had to take some chances late in the game, but I'm seeing kind of just some deep ball regression after he was hitting all of them, that first week.
Yeah, and that's, I think, to be expected. I think the bigger thing is, though, like we're seeing, the impact of that offensive line. It's bad. It's pretty terrible. And this was the question, right? Like, Will Levis has looked quite good and has all the arm in the world. He's got playmakers. The receivers are pretty good. The backfield is good. It's just the offensive line is a catastrophe. And you're like, is that enough to undermine all of the other things collectively and mean that none of that matters? And in this game, it kind of was. Like, you look at Tampa Bay's pass rush, and you can name like half a dozen guys that got a bunch of pressure. And by the way, because it's Tampa Bay, like they're not content with just being like, we're going to get pressure with our front four. We're going to blitz as well. So Antoine Winfield Jr., the safety, with like 8 blitzes and 3 pressures, like they were not only taking your front or winning with the front four, where they're going to add a 5th guy to it, which you can't pick up either. And it's like you look at the Titans' offensive line, it's just not good. Dylan Radunz
really struggled, mostly in the fourth quarter when they needed to pass.
Yeah, and Ray Dunn's is a guy that
Yep.
shouldn't be starting, and they know he shouldn't be starting. They've tried to not have him start before. He was supposed to be the future, right at right tackle, and he was so bad at that can't happen. So they benched him, went in different directions, and now the injuries have mounted, and he's back on the field playing for them. Chris Hubbard is playing. Like they just
go look at Vita Vea's pressures. One where he takes out whoops Andre, because I had mentioned it'd be great if they put Vita Vea right over Aaron Brewer at center. They didn't do that a ton, but Vita Vea beat Andre Dillard at left tackle, Hubbard at right tackle, with some impressive rushes.
I mean, can you imagine?
But yeah, it was a tough one for Levis.
We talk about sometimes, how shocking, like actually shocking, physically shocking it must be for an offensive tackle when Chris Jones moves out to the edge, right? It's like all of a sudden you're used to dealing with these sort of 6'5", 250, 60-pound edge rushers, and then all of a sudden this dude who's 315 and can still kind of move like that goes out there on the edge, and you're like, how do I deal with this? This guy is bigger than me, or at least the same size, and possesses the same kind of strength. Like, this is just a different thing. I'm not used to dealing with this level of strength, intensity, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, now that guy's Vita Vea. Like, suddenly, instead of a 250-pound edge rusher, you've got this 350-pound ball of, like, violence running at you. And I don't know how you deal with that without experience. So, again, Vita Vea, so it doesn't happen like every snap. He's weirdly inconsistent. But, like, Andre Dillard just gets annihilated on one of those plays from the edge.
The Todd Bowles defense, too, they're tough to peg sometimes because they'll have a game like last week where it feels like, again, from a Texans perspective, they played great last week, but it feels like sometimes Todd Bowles' defense just runs into an offense that has all of the answers in the pass game against them. And then there's games like this one where Todd Bowles' defense, on like a week-to-week basis, as we mentioned, they're number one in EPA per play allowed against the run. That's kind of a Todd Bowles staple, in part because you've got guys like Vita Vea, but because you're gonna load the box, right? He doesn't want to get run on. And they did shut down Tennessee's rushing attack. It made Tennessee one-dimensional, and the pressure was getting there. And, so Bowles' defense looks really good coming out of this week, whereas last week it's like dude's on the hot seat. They're getting thrashed. It has been inconsistent over these last few weeks where they have somewhat dominant games like this, and then games like last week where they don't seem to have many answers.
Would you consider moving Peter Skoronski out to left tackle? Because, we talked about this draft time. It's one of those, you give him a chance to tackle first, you move him to guard. They go out and sign Andre Dillard for a fairly questionable sum of money, given Andre Dillard's previous career. Nothing so far through the first half of the season has suggested that was money wisely invested. And I would, if I was a betting man, I would suggest that Andre Dillard will not be the starting left tackle for this team for the long haul. So if that is the case, and you have made an error in your allocation of left tackle resources, you have a potential left tackle sitting there playing left guard right now as a rookie. Do you just bite the bullet now and say, we've already screwed this up, let's fix it potentially by moving our rookie out there?
I would do it. 32 and a quarter inch arms makes me think it's never going to happen.
Right.
There's just they think that's the outlier. You know what I mean? We'll talk more about it at draft time. They think that's the outlier. I believe in not going for the outlier when you're looking at it through a certain lens. The NFL views that as like, this is the outlier thing we can't do. We can't take a guy with those short arms, the stubby arms, and put him at tackle. We just can't do it. Even though I think he'd be better than Andre Dillard. I think he'd be better than Ray Duns. He'd be better than the guys that hashtag look the part at tackle for the Titans. So, yeah, I would give him a shot.
I mean,
Does that affect his guard development if they have to kick him back in? I don't know.
That's the thing. I'd also ask the question, like, what's the downside here? We're already dealing with one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and he's a potential solution at a more important position at left tackle.
Yeah. I mean, I do think if you were debating elite guard, and maybe we'll see if Skoronski can get there. If you could choose elite guard or average tackle, you might take the elite guard, right? That's okay. I don't think that's a slam dunk you move him to tackle, but I think it depends on scarcity in the draft and in free agency. Like as they move forward, it depends on what you have available, but I think one of your options should be the ability to move Skoronski based off of what else you can get to fill in there for the Titans.
He's also not playing out of his mind at guard either. So it's not like if he'd hit the ground running and already looked like an all-pro at guard, maybe you'd be like, all right, well, let's not mess with a good thing here.
Right.
But he's playing okay. He's playing fine at left guard. I would give him a shot at tackle where he played in college and see if that works better. One other, T.A. Tart had a huge game here. We think about, the Titans' defensive line as being Jeffrey Simmons and friends, but like Tart was a really big impact player in this game.
No, Tart's a good player. Tennessee falls to 3-6 here by themselves in last place in the AFC South. And Bucks, because the NFC South was not good yesterday, Bucks the only team to win this weekend. 4-5, they're half game behind the Saints in the South.
Yeah, nobody above 500 in that division.